Okay, today is October 15th, 2007. We're at the Circle Cinema in Tulsa, Oklahoma. We're pleased to have Mr. John Calhoun of the Army Airborne Paratroopers, who was a corporal in the 82nd Airborne. Mr. Calhoun, it's a privilege and honor to have you with us tonight. We thank you for coming down and just ask that you would tell us your story in your words.
Start now. I was inducted into service on the 8th of January, 1943. Went to Fort Sill, and I'd worked for a bakery, and they thought I was a baker, and was sent to basic training in Fort Warren, Wyoming, for about a month, and then they sent me to Camp Swift, Texas. It's about 25 or 30 miles south of Austin, to the 612th Quartermaster Baking Battalion. All these guys were older bakers, and most of them from the Northeast, and the biggest part of them I couldn't even understand. But they had a field, all the ovens and everything set up out in the field, and they were baking bread for the 45th Division, which was on maneuvers in Camp Polk, Louisiana. And I started driving the truck, and it was out in the woods, and man, you never seen it like it ticks. Well, about after a month and a half, they disbanded that, and we moved into Fort Sam Houston. And at that time, they said that all the guys 38 and over could get out of service. Well, just about all those guys got out, and one of the quartermaster there in Fort Sam, that's a big post, and a real nice post. He said, I want you to come over and get in the supply quartermaster with me. And he said, you can probably stay here for the duration. And they were just messing around, not doing anything. And one day I looked on the bulletin board, and there was a notice trying to enlist paratroops. It paid an extra $50 a month, jump pay. And I was making $48 a month, I think. And I signed up, and in a month, I was Fort Benning, Georgia, going through jump school. And they put you through the works, buddy, I'll tell you. It's calisthenics about 4 to 6 to 8 hours a day, and it's all push-ups and double timing, and you don't walk anywhere, you double time. And I spent about 14 weeks, and the last 5 weeks was parachute school, and you're dropping and jumping, and at the last week they hook you up in a parachute ring. It's 28 foot in diameter, and you're in just like you're going to jump, and that tower's 250 foot. They pull you up 240 foot and ask you to drop your paper, and because which way the wind's blowing, they don't want you to flow into that tower. So you drop your paper, and this guy's like that, and he said, pull your right risers. And they pull up, when you go up the other 10 foot, that's when it releases and you come down. And you do that about 3 days, but you make a jump every day. Five jumps that qualifies you. And got my wings, and we went to Fort Meade, and right out of Baltimore, Maryland, and had about 2 months of training and made some practice jumps. And then it was in December, about the 15th, we moved to Camp Shanks, New York. That's the debarkation point. And everybody got a 24-hour pass. And my wife and my mother rode the train to New York City, and we had 1 day. And then 2 days later, we boarded an English supply ship, the dirtiest thing I'd ever seen, and that's what we went overseas on. And we went to Ireland, Northern Ireland, for about, I guess, about 2 months. and we made a couple of 3 practice jumps up there, and boarded the ship and went to over to Scotland and down to Nottingham, England, and that's where we made our base camps. We pitched tents and set up right there, and then there was an airfield not too far from there, and a couple other battalions in the 82nd were stationed not too far from there, and we all used the same jump field, and we jumped from there. And then in the week before, June the 6th, we moved to an airfield, and we all had cots, and we were in this big hangar, 2 or 3 hangars in fact, and they'd give us reports every day on what S2 was doing, on what to expect and this and that. And we didn't make any, after we went down there, we didn't make another jump. And one of the boys, about 3 cots down from me, he shot himself in the knee to keep from going, and that was a lot of stuff. And that evening they come in and said, get lined out. Well, put our packs on and loaded up our stuff and got out like that and went out to the airfields right there and walked out. And I didn't see him, but Eisenhower was mingling among the troops. I didn't see him. But we had 14 guys to a stick. That's 14 jumpers. And there's no seat belts in a C-47. And you get in, and right down the center of that plane, there's a cable. That's your cable you hook up to. Outside your chute, you've got a 10-foot webbing. And on the end of it is a snap fastener attached to that cable. It's attached to the top of your chute. And when you jump, when you fall 10 foot, that jerks the top off of the chute, and a little pilot chute comes out, and the prop blast opens your other chute. And man, if you don't have a good body position, and you're going down head first, and them little riders on the top of your shoulder, it'll peel the hide off the top of your shoulders. But we loaded up. It was about 11 o'clock, and we sat there for quite a while and smoked 3 or 4 cigarettes. And about that time, we took off and headed over the English Channel. And like I told you, 300 feet. And they said, we're going to go in to try to evade this dang anti-aircraft. And we didn't. Boy, they started banging. They'd shoot up through the side of the plane. And we all, jump master said, stand up and hook up. And so we get away from the sides of the plane. Anyway, we were right in the center. And then they said, move the door. Well, you just check off, and then the first guy right on down the line, and you check, make sure the guy in front of you had his snap fastener on, and he was ready to go. And we jumped, and like I told you, that was I hit the ground about 10 after 1 on June the 6th.
1944.
June the 6th, 44.
And when did the invasionary forces land?
When did the what now?
When did the ships, land?
They didn't hit the beach till 6 o'clock the next morning.
So you were there a day?
We were just a few hours.
Okay.
We dropped at 1:10. They hit the beach at 6.
Okay.
But Eisenhower almost called it off because that channel was so dang rough. And man, there was thousands of ships, British and us, and just many ships. And a lot of these Navy boys, those boys that regular infantry and guys like that, they put them in there in those LCIs and LCSs or whatever, but they didn't get them up to the beach. that artillery was eating them alive, and they'd drop that dang deal and tell the guys to get off. Well, they all weighed way up there, and there wasn't no way they could swim. Heck, they drowned. And we had many. In fact, the cemetery right there in Omaha Beach, I don't know where you've ever been over there or not, but I think there's 22,000 men right there buried in that cemetery. Of course, they take really good care of them. And then, like I told you, I got hit a tree, and then I cut my risers and dropped at, I don't know, 12, 14 feet. Wasn't very far. Got out and stuff, and I could hear, and it was a lot of shuffling going on around, but I think we surprised them that Panzer Division, and most of it was guys from other outfits. There's some guys 504 and even some guys from the 101st that was around there. And we just kind of, that first morning, it was just kind of getting lined out and staying close to those hedgerows because, man, them Germans, I mean, they were shooting those. And there was 2 or 3 machine gun nests going, and I had another boy. It was right over in the corner, and I could see every 10 shells comes out of the thing is a tracer. It's lighted. You can see. I said, he's right over in that corner. We inched around there and got about 15, 20 foot from him and lobbed a few grenades in there, and that silence that. And next morning they set up some more machine guns, but like I say, those Panzers those 88s were really. And then the next morning, while we got situated with some other troops and started getting lined out, and Sherburne was St. Mary Gleese was the first town that was taken, and if one trooper had come down on that steeple up there, and man, they riddled him. But St. Mary Gleese was the first town that was taken, and I think the 504 was instrumental, and I mean the biggest part of the guys were with the 504. And then we were just that first couple of 3 days we were just trying to keep situated and see on every plane there's 2 equipment bundles. They're big long bundles about 12, 15 foot, and they're packed and rolled up, and it's ammunition, it's grenades. The biggest thing we had to see was a 30 caliber machine gun. And the 50s and the 30 and 60 millimeter were in the deal, and all the ammunition. And I just had 300 rounds of ammunition. Of course, I had those. I had 4 phosphorus grenades and 4 fragmentation, and boy, those phosphorus grenades are really something. You throw them, and whatever they hit, they set on fire. And they start burning, you know. And man, one of them hits you, it really starts burning. But like I say, then I got hit that 3rd night, and I just laid there. We had sulfa powder, and I got hit in the shoulder, and the back, and the side of my face, and my leg. And like I told you, medics got up there, and we got back. I got back to a field hospital. It's just the deal. They just kind of check over you and then send you on back to the beach and on the hospital ship and back to England. And I was in the hospital 4 weeks. And then when our battalion jumped in on D-Day, we had 2,640 something men. We got back to Nottingham, we had 1,100. Now, that wasn't all that killed. There was a lot of POWs, and there was a lot of missing in action, and a lot of guys injured, you know. But, and that was good because Eisenhower thought we'd get about 500 back. But then, like I said, I got hit, and then I went back to our base camp, and we're getting ready for jump in Holland, in Nijmegen, and this bridge was the only way that Hitler had to get stuff across the Rhine. And we tried to blow that bridge, and the Air Corps, about 3 straight days there, they tried to bomb that bridge, and they couldn't get it. And the Germans, man, they had, gosh, I don't know, probably 3 or 4 companies right around that bridge, you know, guarding it, protecting that bridge. But we finally got it blown, and we were in Holland for about 48 days, I think. And then we went back to our base camp. They moved our base camp from Nottingham to Reims, France. It's up northeast of Paris. And we went back there, and we had every place we'd ever been was tents, but they had brick barracks there, and they were really nice. And they had running water. You didn't have to haul water or anything. And they were going to give everybody a 2-week pass, 2-week furlough, either to Paris or back to London or back to England. And about the 13th, 14th of December, they said, everybody get ready, we're going back in. And here we didn't have time to jump. They pulled cattle trucks in there, they loaded everybody up, and we went to Belgium. And it was kind of a fall, even about like this, a little bit cool, but not real. And we got up there and then loaded us in the 106th Division. It was a new infantry division, and boy, those boys were training back, just running back through, had dropped their guns and jumped the tanks and everything else, and said, boy, the Germans are coming. And they sure were. Well, we sat up right there and put a stop to that. And the 101st went into Bastogne. I guess you've seen that. And the Germans had surrounded Bastogne, and their theory was to get to Antwerp, take Antwerp, and then drive the British out of there, and then they could start taking over the world again. And Hitler had 26 divisions on that line in Belgium, and we had about 7 or 8. And the next day after we got up there, boy, it started sleeting and cold, and man, I mean, it was cold. We went through the Hürtgen Forest, and we had a lot of close fighting, and like I was saying, you dig those foxholes and try to get warm. Well, there wasn't any way to get warm, and you couldn't. You had K and C and K rations, and there wasn't anything in that's warm. Well, you had a deal to make coffee, but you didn't have any way to heat the water. We had little Coleman stoves about that high, but you were afraid because they put off smoke, and then they said, and man, they'd zero right in on it, right where you were. And on Christmas Day, they brought us supposedly a Christmas dinner, and it was pretty good. It was cold, but we got something different anyway. And I drove they needed a guy to drive a wire Jeep. And on each side of this Jeep, it's got a deal like this on each corner and a big roll of wire. And these shells and everything would break wires from the front back to headquarters, they'd split those wires. Well, you had to run those wires down and replace them. And I was on that, and after those fields are just white as everything. And then one incident, we were about a day behind this incident in Malmedy, and the Germans overran this, probably 2 or 3 or 4 companies overran this company, about a company, I guess, of troopers, and took them prisoner. And they were SS. This SS trooper, lieutenant, he marched them out in the field, and they machine gunned every one of them. That was a Malmedy, and they just laid out there. And of course, they wasn't any smell or anything else because it was too cold. They froze. But they killed, I think there was 3 guys that played dead. They got out of the deal. They killed about 83 or 84, I believe. And then we had the deal among ourselves there wouldn't be no more prisoners. There wouldn't be any more German prisoners than there weren't, because you just shot them. You didn't have, really and truly, you didn't have the supply to feed us, much less someone else. Man, I never will forget, we took over this was a Panzer. We captured about 6 or 8 guys that were SS, and they had white fur deals on. Man, they were really warm. And we made every one of them strip out of that and give them to different guys as a uniform. And that was really something. And but I think we took those guys as prisoners, but we made them because they blended in right with the surroundings. See, that white, it was polar bear fur is what it was, and they made the uniforms out of it, and it was something else. But then Patton came up from the south, and this German, they had Bastogne surrounded, and we wasn't 10 miles from there, and we had this line. This was coming from Germany, back going west. And like I started to tell you a little bit ago, our Air Force, it couldn't fly. It was cloudy for about 27, 28 days. And man, they couldn't fly, and Germany had us going. But we were holding on pretty good. And this German general, I believe it was, he sent the message in to McCullough. He was commander of the 101st, and they wanted him to surrender. And he sent the note back nuts. And it wasn't a few days, and they were running out of everything: food, ammunition, everything you could think of. And they had a lot of casualties. And Patton came from the south and broke through. And then the skies that morning, looked out, boy, the blue sky, and here come the planes. I mean, they were bombing the heck out of them. And that's what turned the situation around to where we started pushing the Germans back toward the Rhine, over the Rhine. And we were up there until February 5th or 6th. It started warming up a little bit, but it never did get above freezing the whole time I was up there. And one night, I never will forget, I was about to freeze to death, and we had those old wool overcoats, and man, they get wet, and they're heavy, I ain't kidding. But a bunch of tanks come through, and I told my buddy in my foxhole, I said, let's run out there so that exhaust from those tanks. At least we warm our hands up. I went out, well, they were air-cooled tanks. The exhaust they put out was just cold air. But we'd been up there about 5 weeks, I believe, and they about 6 big trucks came in, and you'd go in one end and you chuck everything you had, every piece that you had on you, boots, underwear, everything. And boy, they were warm. I mean, it was warm. And you step in there, and there was a shower, and you had 3 minutes to just stand under it, 3 minutes. And then they turned the water off, and you had 2 minutes to lather up soap and really wash, and then the water would come back on for 3 minutes to rinse off with. And man, that was the best dang thing it ever was. And then we went through and they issued all new uniforms. And see, we just had our jump boots up to that point, and they're leather, and dang it, they leak. I mean, you can't expect that much, and to hold up. And they gave us wool underwear. Man, it was good. And they issued what they call shoe packs. They were leather to about here, and then they was rubber all the way down, but they were lined. And you put on about 3 pair, and they give us all 3 new pair of socks. Put them on. Man, it made all the difference in the world. And we got new shelter covers. That's the 2 shelter covers make a tent. And that's what we tried to keep our foxhole. But you talk about, I've never been as cold in my life as I was in Bulge. And we left and went back to Reams and got a little bit of rest there. And then a little while they said we're going down south of Paris. We went down to an airfield just south of Paris, and we made about 3 or 4 practice jumps, and we were going to jump over the Rhine when Germany surrendered. And then we went to, they appointed our outfit to go to Frankfurt, Germany, to be honor guard for SHAEF headquarters, which was Eisenhower's Supreme Headquarters, Allied Expeditionary Forces. And they went down right in the heart of Frankfurt, in the most elite place, and they told those people to get out. You got till tonight to get out. Don't move. You can't take anything except a suitcase and what you got on your back. And then we went in, and I don't know whether you've ever seen concertina wire or not, but it's big round rolls of barbed wire, and those barbs on there are about an inch and a half long, but it's just like razors. I mean, every one of them. We put up 3 of them, and it went all the way around that, I don't know, 7, 8, 10 mile, and then that was SHAEF headquarters. And Eisenhower had a big house. I mean, it was a big house up there. And I was driving the truck, and we'd change guard every 4 hours. And then where we moved into, they went out, and it was kind of like a long apartment building. They just moved Germans out, told them to get out. And we had it pretty good because I was driving this truck, and I dropped the guys off guard every 4 hours. And we just go look around in these houses. And man, you never saw such beautiful paintings and everything like that. And I'd see a couch or something that was real good, and he and I'd load it on the truck, take it back, throw our couch out in our old apartment, and we completely furnished our apartment from downtown Frankfurt. And we didn't have any hot water, and I rigged up we had plenty of gasoline. It was in motor pool. You had plenty, and I rigged up a 5-gallon can of gas, run a little line down, and had a burner underneath that tank, and we had hot water to take a shower, and it wasn't bad. And then we laid that airfield there. That was just a plain old field. I told this boy out there, those sheets were about 2 foot wide and about 10 foot long. We laid that whole airfield, that's what they were. And those 2 pictures of when Truman came over, well, that's that airfield, that's where they landed. But it was good. And I had the points to come home, but we didn't have any replacements. And on the 10th of November, 1945, I got I got my deal that I could come home and sent to Electric Strike. It was down close to on the French coast, and we boarded down there for a few days, boarded a supply ship, and back to the United States. Went to Camp Kilmer, New Jersey, and then to Fort Chaffee, Arkansas, and that's where I was discharged on the 19th of November, 1945. And I got home, went back to work for the bakery. That's about it.
Great, thank you very much. That was great. I didn't need to do any steering or anything. Thank you very much. I appreciate
That's
your
quite all
story.
right. But it was an occasion, and like I tell a lot of people, I think we won the war because God was on our side. I think we won the war because the way the Germans treated the Jewish people.
The Jews, sure, yeah.
And here Hitler started back about 33 and getting the Nazis, and those little boys had better equipment, were better trained, they had everything better. Us, a bunch of old country boys, off the farm, 5 weeks of basic training, and you're there. But we did a good job. Like, I'm not bragging, but we did a good job.
Oh, you did. And I often think, what would happen if he didn't concentrate so much time and effort and money and resources and everything to the extermination of the Jews and just concentrated on defeating his enemy?
Well, he would have beat us for one thing. It's when he went against the Russians, and they got that supply line so dang far, and around Stalingrad. He lost 1 million men around Stalingrad. Of course, the Russians, they lost a bunch too. But they can't, you got to supply these dang, you know, you got to supply men with ammunition and clothes and food and gasoline and whatever else, and you get so far, why, dang, you sit there because you can't do anything else. But I believe that if he hadn't have went after Russia, that you guys had all been speaking German.
That's right. That's right. And
But
he went after all those Jews, and a lot of people don't realize that Albert Einstein was a Jew.
That's right.
He split the atom, and that's what ended World War II.
That's right.
If he didn't do that, you know what I mean? You know, a lot of things. So.
And a lot of people today, they don't want to even think about Hiroshima and Nagasaki. But if old Truman hadn't have went ahead and let them drop those bombs, we'd have lost another 1 million men.
Yeah, yeah.
Because we would have went on to Japan, and we'd have had to fight all the way through Japan, and all the women and kids and everything else.
Yeah.